For my level, I didn't just want to make one big platforming course, I wanted to implement zones into the level, with each zone having a checkpoint at the beginning. The first zone consisted mainly of duplicates of a wooden crate asset I got from the HOC Blueprints folder. I wanted to start off the level with a short yet difficult platformer. The zone starts with 3 boxes of various sizes and then commences into long wooden boxes, which is just the wooden crate asset stretched out. These long boxes are also rotated in a manner that progresses the player upwards. After a couple more boxes, we move on to these flat boxes that are moving. This is the most difficult and last part of this zone. The second zone is the shortest of the bunch, but requires immense focus and patience in order to pass through. I used one of the assets that was intended to be used as a platform, but instead I used it as an obstacle to avoid. In the zone, there is a slim wooden path the player must walk upon. These big round objects will come from the side and go through the wooden path. If the player is struck by the big round objects, then they will most likely be knocked off the path, leading to them to start over to the last checkpoint. I also added a small gap in the wooden path near the end to throw the player off and inflict stress, as they now need to focus jumping over the gap and avoiding the round objects. The third zone is an area the player cannot die from, meaning there are no gaps, holes, or voids the player can fall into. This area consists of a locked door, a key, and a small labyrinth. The door is quite simple to locate, however the key is a lot more hidden, so the player will need to explore the labyrinth to find the key to unlock the door and complete the level. To throw off and confuse the player, I placed coins all over the maze randomly. Since coins commonly lead the player to the objective, this will confuse them as they won't know which way to go. When making the maze, I sketched the layout of it on my tablet. My aim was to make a moderately spacious yet difficult labyrinth. The fourth and final zone is in my opinion the most difficult to complete, and was the most difficult to create. The zone involves 8 round platforms rotating in different directions around an island containing a key. This key unlocks a door that leads to the finish line. The most difficult part about this zone is that the player must reach the center island, and because of the drastic speed of the round platforms, the objective requires immense patience and observation of the course. Once the round platforms have made a full rotation around the island, there is a brief moment where the platforms remain very still, this being the player's opportunity to make a move. As seen in this image, there is a rectangular outline underneath the zone. This is the death hitbox. Due to the zone being very high up in the air, if the player fell, it would take a while for them to die and then respawn. So to save time, I took the death hitbox asset, scaled it up, and put it directly underneath the zone. The primary emotions that I aimed to invoke in the player throughout this whole level was frustration and anger. I made a lot of jumps that were very easy to miss and made sure not to add too many checkpoints. It took me 2 days of constant testing and tinkering to make something frustrating but fair. This is confirmed by the constant increase of intensity after each zone, and how the checkpoints gradually get further apart after each zone. To add to the level, I also implemented secret areas that could only be found by the curious. I wanted to reward the player's exploration by hiding gems throughout the level. In terms of game design principles, I tackled a fair share of them when making this level. The first one being progression. This level progressively gets more difficult after each zone. I also used beacons to highlight the focal point at the end of each zone, which is also the checkpoint. These beacons can be seen from across the level. Essentially, they're there to keep the player motivated, and to help them focus on the main goal. I used the principle anticipation, with patience and focus being forced upon the player during specific zones. For example, in the final zone, I mentioned the brief moment the round platforms stop moving. And lastly, I used the principle overlapping events and behavior. For example, the second zone with the player not only focusing on the objects trying to push them off, but also the jumping over the gap in the wooden path.